Hello, and welcome to My Digital Story. I'm Jason Gillikin with Triangle Direct Media, and on this podcast, we talk about how websites evolve from a simple concept and a domain name to a thriving online business. We'll discuss the successes, the failures, and figure out what motivates these online entrepreneurs. Today, we're very excited to have Ryan Cunningham from PremierTableLinens.com. Premier Table Linen started in 2008 when Tony Cueto saw a problem and decided to solve it. Tony had been a trade show director and had heard complaints from exhibitors about the poor quality of table linens along with the high cost. And it's true, if you ever go to a trade show, you know that everything, including the linens, is way overpriced. Tony saw an opening in the market and set out to utilize his connections in the linen space to get customers higher quality tablecloths at a lower price. And so PremierTableLinens.com was born.
The key thing is understand your market. What does your market need? And then fulfill that gap that you identify in the market, because otherwise you're just in a sea of everyone else who thinks they're going to make $1 million a year online just by putting up a website.
That's Ryan, and he clearly wins the award for Best Accent on the podcast so far. Ryan came on board in 2012 to run Premier's digital art department and basically spearhead the growth of the website through paid search, SEO, video, social media, and just overall the day-to-day operations of the company. He's one of those guys who's in the office at 7 a.m. every morning and just does it all. I've talked to Ryan many times over the years, and I still learned a ton about their business on this podcast, like why it's truly an omni-channel business with renting and buying and printing, how they deal with keeping up with trends, partnering with the event industry. It goes way beyond what we can see online. And right now, Premier Table Linens is fourth in the market with big plans for moving up. On this episode, we talked to Ryan about marketing the site, optimizing for mobile, keeping their core customers happy, any mistakes they've made along the way, and then we get into what's coming next in search and advice that Ryan would have for anyone who wants to start up an e-commerce site today. So here we go. So we're with Ryan Cunningham from PremierTableLinens.com. Ryan, thanks for joining us.
You are most welcome, Jason. My pleasure to be with you.
Yeah. So, Ryan, what's your background? How did you get to Premier? And what was it, 2012?
Actually, Jason, I started with the company, and this really leads into my being here. I met Tony, the owner, through eBay, funnily enough, in very early 2008. And at the time, I was running my own graphic design and web design company. And we had a product where we would create, and this shows how long ago it was, a flash banner, which I don't think are quite so popular anymore. But Tony had hired me to create, I was selling flash banners as a lead capture basically for customers. They were $20 a piece. I sold Tony a banner, and that was in 2008, which funnily enough is when Magento had first hit the bricks as an e-commerce platform. Mm-hmm. And I made the banner for him. He loved the banner. I popped it up on his site for him. And he called me about 2 days later and asked me, did I know anything about Magento? And I said, well, I know it's a new e-commerce platform, but I really don't know much more than that. So he said, well, I've enjoyed working with you. Would you like to find out about it? So I'm like, yep, give me a couple of weeks. I'll find out about it. So from 2008 until 2012, the relationship basically blossomed, and essentially Premier Table Linens became one of my biggest customers for my business. It was around 2011, I think Tony and I started going into negotiation because he wanted me to come and work here full time. So really from 2011 to 2012, I was negotiating to sell my old business, come here full time. And that's exactly what we did. I think it was around May or June of 2012. I moved to Miami and came on board full-time with the company.
Oh, wow. Okay. So was it 2008 then that Premier Table Linens launched an e-commerce store, or was it e-commerce before that?
It was e-commerce about 6 months before that. The Magento install had been, I think originally Tony had very much a out-of-the-box commerce store through GoDaddy, if I remember correctly. He then hired a company in Miami to build his Magento store for him. I then came on board to take that over from that company probably about 6 or 7 months after they had built it.
Okay. All right. Gotcha. So Premier Table Linens in general, what's the story about Premier Table Linens as far as what do you guys sell? Is it mostly rental versus buying? Is it the wedding market? Is it shows? What's Premier Table Linens all about?
Premier Table Linens has become omnidirectional, I think, is the best way to describe that, Jason.
Okay.
And the reason I say that is Premier Table Linens was born from Tony's frustration because Tony used to be a trade show manager. He would basically, or not, he would put the trade shows on. The most common thing that he would always hear from people was how expensive a tablecloth was or a table skirt to dress their trade show tables.
It is.
And Tony knew from prior experience, having been both sides of the fence, that he could bring this product to people a lot cheaper with a lot less hassle and a lot greater understanding of what they needed. And basically, that was the very simple problem that spawned Premier Table Linens. Now, as our company has grown, kind of incepted ourselves into the trade show market, and we have since blossomed from them to not only sell, we also rent. We have a national linen rental program now, which we find is utilized greatly by our wholesale network of rental party planners and wedding planners and various other people.
Mm-hmm.
So we now cover, not only do we cover the trade show people from the respect that we supply tablecloths, table skirting, we also now have a custom printed division where we'll actually print your trade show tablecloths, backdrops, pipe and drape displays, etc. We have the rental, which covers the wedding industry very nicely. We also sell, and we sell on a B2C basis from, Mrs. Davis, who wants a new bright red Christmas tablecloth, and she just wants a single cloth, all the way up to some of the larger corporate companies that we deal with. So we now essentially cover all of the aspects of your standard linen rental, your standard linen retail, and we also cover the wholesale side of the business, the B2C side of the business, trade shows, printing, and weddings. So we've expanded into all areas, basically.
You guys have a lot going on there.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. We're constantly innovating, I think, is probably the best way to put it.
Oh, that's great. So back in 2008, how was Tony able to make it such a much lower cost than what it was before? And did that upset the trade show industry?
There was definitely a disruption, Jason. I think as we sit here in 2017, disruptors is probably one of our big words in marketing these days. And I think that really back then is essentially what Tony had done. Tony had, and we as a corporation do not look to squeeze the pennies out of every single deal, so to speak, and maximize potential on every deal with regards to the customer. We look to manufacture at the best possible pricing and then bring those best possible prices to our customer. We work very much on a volume rather than a high margin profit per product. So Tony essentially came in and disrupted that market basically by giving that market what it needed from a price point more than anything else. One of the other things, all of our product is manufactured here in the United States as well. So supply time and guaranteeing vendors that they're going to get what they need is actually just as critical, if not more critical, than price in this industry.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, and I've been to a few trade shows, not too many, but a few of them, and everything is so expensive to rent, especially.
They can. You are mostly right.
So now, what percent of your business right now is rental versus buying?
Currently, I would say, if I had to guess, I don't have those figures to hand, but our rental business is versus purchasing, I would say 10% would be rental, 10% would be purchase.
Okay.
Because the other reason is there is, due to the fact that we keep our prices obviously extremely competitive, renting is without doubt a cheaper way to dress an event. If, for example, it's a one-off event, say it may be your wedding or it may be your brother's graduation party or something of that nature. So there are circumstances where rental is definitely the better way to go, but also there are sometimes when you might be better off looking at maybe purchasing the linen. So we recommend it to people, hey, why don't you buy them? You can sell them afterwards. It's still a very small part of our business, but it is also a very valuable part because it gives people a good insight, and I'm sure that we win customers from rentals that way as well.
Yeah, and for the rental business, let's say for weddings, how do you keep up with what's trendy? And then what do you do with old inventory when it's not so much as in demand?
Sure, absolutely. When it comes to keeping up with trends, it's very much like anything. You've got to essentially be looking 6 months to 9 months in advance.
Yeah.
Because you've got to be looking at, what kind of colors are Pantone going to put out for this year's wedding palette, those various other things. So it's about this time of year now that we'll start looking into what are the colors going to be for next year. We're going to ensure that we have representative colors within our product lines, and ensure that we can do that. And I'm sorry, Jason, what was the second part of that question you asked me?
Well, do you ever have old inventory then when it's not as in demand, and what happens to that?
Yeah, exactly. And obviously, and that's a very good question, because as you can imagine from a rental program, in order to accommodate enough sizes and everything, we have to have a huge inventory for rentals. So we have developed a program where essentially we take any linen rental, each linen rental only goes out to a customer 4 times. That's the maximum amount of times that it will be rented. On that 4th time when it comes back on the truck, it is then pulled out of our rental circulation and is then laundered and goes through quality control. Providing it goes through quality control and everything is accepted, there's no rips, no tears, no candle wax. It essentially looks like a brand new cloth. Then we retail those through our outlet store, which we have here in Miami, which is a physical location, and we essentially sell those at a vastly reduced cost.
Oh wow!
So that's essentially our life cycle of a tablecloth.
Okay, well that makes a lot of sense. For the rentals, then, are most of your competitors the local shops? So, like, if I'm in Raleigh, North Carolina, there are some linen rental companies that I know about, or I could go online to your site. So, I mean, are your competitors then the local stores?
I would definitely say so, Jason. I mean, our competitors really, and I think this is where we see a direct to end user rental. We see quite a few of, but we also see a lot of those rental companies, party planning agents, etc., renting from us as well. So now I would say we're in competition with anybody in the U.S. that rents linens, to be honest with you, Jason, because our program is nationwide.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very easy program for people to use. They basically book the linens online. We have, an Adobe e-sign contract that they fill out, and we'll supply anywhere in the contiguous U.S. within 48 hours of order. So we really are in direct competition with those local people. And I think a lot of it comes down to the organizer of the event, to be honest with you. For example, if we take your scenario where you were in Raleigh, for example, we've had situations where that party organizer is going to check a local company, and generally we come up a lot cheaper. So we may not have such an extensive line of things to rent, because there are companies that might do tablecloths, and they do the tables, and they do the chairs and everything else, for example. But certainly for the linens, I think you'll find we're one of the cheapest in the country.
Okay. And then as millennials are growing, obviously, and they're starting to get married and have much more say in business, obviously, has your business grown because they prefer to buy online?
I believe it has, Jason. It's a very hard metric to obviously qualify, but I think it's also something that any astute business owner these days, specifically online retail, has got to be cognizant of, because there are definitely different ways and different mindsets that a millennial is going to purchase something with. And I think my gut tells me that until we get a better handle on how we deliver some of our mobile content, then I think we'll have a little bit more feedback with that kind of thing as well, because our industry is, we're not selling laptops or iPads or anything where the customer is at the cutting edge cusp of technology, so to speak. Tablecloths, I don't think will ever rush to the front of the tech industry news. And if they do, then obviously we'll be riding high. But it's a strange marketplace, because our demographic of our customers is very much mixed. We do have a lot of millennials, but we also have a lot of 50 to 65 age bracket as well. And we've got a lot of loyal customers that work with us over the years as well. So it's a real mixed pot that we've got. There's no real strict demographics. So yes, we need to account for these millennials, because I do see changes in the way they purchase, and the way they interact with the business, and the way that they want to do business. Everything has to be much more electronic. It needs to be emails. It's not so much phone calls. There's a definite shift going on.
Gotcha. Okay. So looking through your website here, you have a pretty impressive list of clients on your website. Westgate Hotels, MGM Grand, Whole Foods, Motley Fool. Do they just upload their images and then you give them linens for their trade shows? Is that how it works?
It's some of the examples that you've given me there, Jason. Excuse me, that would be the case. For example, the Motley Fool, we printed some trade show tablecloths for them with their logos on. For example, MGM. Currently, actually, Tony is out in Vegas. He's going to be meeting with MGM because they're going to be redoing a lot of their restaurants and dining areas. And it's a mix. Some of the bigger customers, for example, Victoria's Secret are a large customer of ours. We do a lot of their promotional printing for them. I've just finished up working with Whole Foods, and with Whole Foods, again, that's printed tablecloths, but they're printed tablecloths that they're going to be using for their in-store setups and the holiday promotions and the Q4 Christmas push. We have a core of corporate customers, of which MGM, Rolls-Royce, Victoria's Secrets, all those people fit into, that we do large volume printing jobs for. We also do point of sale displays for them. We also bag and UPC for them, and we have a whole distribution network for them. So there's a much larger side of the business going on kind of behind the scenes in that respect with our corporate bodies that we deal with. So, but at the end of the day, essentially, yes, we're printing tablecloths for them.
Wow. Again, you've got a lot going on. So you're the VP of Online Marketing, along with some other roles. What do you spend most of your time on a daily basis?
My daily day, essentially, Jason, is, as you mentioned, marketing. Obviously, one of our key drivers has been an online, primarily online business. That's something that you've got to stay ahead of. Make sure that you're ahead of the curve rather than in the middle of the curve, in my opinion. So a lot of my time each day is spent with monitoring campaigns that we may be doing, whether they may be Facebook advertising campaigns, maybe Google AdWords. It could be checking through our strategic SEO timeline to make sure that everything is working properly. I'm also very heavily entrenched with our office team. I essentially oversee everything that's IT. Mm-hmm. I also oversee our printed products department. So I'm ensuring that those large jobs that we just spoke about are running smoothly, everything's going properly, right down to the singular deals that we're doing each day, and liaise with Paul Buckland, who's our printed products manager, to make sure everything's running there smoothly. Essentially making sure that the business on a day-to-day basis is running correctly as it should be from a digital standpoint. We don't have any issues. We don't have any problems. And last but not least, reporting directly back to our CEO to make sure he knows everything's going on fine. So I would say bottom line, Jason, my hands touch probably every single part of the business on a daily basis. Overall oversight to make sure that everything is running as it should be.
Jeez, yeah, no wonder you get in at 7 a.m. every morning.
Yeah, it needs to be. So
yeah,
busy day. Yeah, very much.
So everyone always wants to know where to best spend their marketing dollars. What's worked best for you, and maybe what hasn't worked well for you?
We're kind of a strange animal when it comes to marketing. I mean, I've worked in the big corporate world with big names, Ducati, BMW, Triumph, large corporates who have, as I'm sure you've experienced and you understand, these fantastic marketing plans that are planned out years in ahead. They know where they're going, what they're doing. We have essentially, and this is by design with Tony and myself, essentially not really pushed marketing dollars that much until the last couple of years. And the reason for that was with my technical knowledge from a search engine optimization point of view, my technical knowledge with regards to the Magento platform, we really managed to vehicle our online presence ourselves very, very well until about early 2012 when things started exploding and we started getting much busier. And at that point, that was when we came on board with Triangle Direct, and we needed that additional arm to essentially help us out. We continued to clean up the site, make the site healthier, so to speak, from a technical point of view, and we continued our social media presences and everything else. About probably 18 months ago, 2 years ago, we decided that we were going to start doing some more aggressive marketing with regards to campaigns, for example, Google AdWords.
Mm-hmm.
AdWords is something that Tony had tried prior to meeting with me, had, unfortunately, as many people have, a bad experience with it. Since we've reshaped campaigns and come on board with TDM, that's been one of our biggest successes to date, has been the Google AdWords campaign. And also the consistent checking, changing, seeing what's working with regards to SEO, page layouts, and various other things.
Mm-hmm.
I think really our marketing efforts long term have always been to have a website that is informational for our customers, that they're going to understand, that they're going to want to come back to. So long term marketing, we're always focused on search engine optimization and customer experience. They're probably the two big things. I think short to midterm, we basically looked at AdWords to pick up some gaps, and with the success that we've had, it's become much more than that. It's become a very good revenue center for us, so we concentrate very heavily on that. And the other thing is, Jason, we spend quite a lot of our marketing dollars on creating either internal software that is behind the scenes that makes the customer's purchasing experience much better. I would say, our best spend on marketing dollars is ensuring that the foundation that we're on is strong, and Google AdWords and customer service. I think customer service is still our best marketing tool that we have. We have very good reviews on the site, a wonderful pool of satisfied customers, and we continue to move forward that way.
Yeah, and back to that software. So you've got, since 2008, people that have bought through your site. You need to make sure that it's an easy experience for past clients.
Exactly. Yeah, creating that seamless checkout process is, I think, every e-commerce business's dream, to make sure that that flows well, and that's something that we've tweaked and changed. Even up to 3 or 4 months ago, we were still changing various checkout methods.
Gotcha. Okay. What about any sort of email campaigns or any retargeting?
We've done. We're not a big email blast newsletter type organization. We have ventured down that path a few times, and I find this strange because when I look at some of our competition, two particular people spring to mind, and they email market 2 or 3 times a week. They'll send out a newsletter. Now, we've tried that kind of repetitious, keep hitting your customers, and it obviously works for these other companies' customer bases, but not ours for some reason. Our customers prefer to come to us when they need us. We've learned that if we try and push things out to our customers too much, we'll actually upset them. They're like, look, I don't need this email coming out anymore. I know what you guys have. I'll be there when I get there.
Sure.
So I think we are. I don't think we're unique within our space within the industry, but I think that we are unique that we retain a very, very large core level of customers just through our business ideology and our business method. And I think that sets us aside. That's why we don't aggressively, visibly market as much as a lot of our competition, because we don't really have to be honest.
Yeah. If you've got that core group, you're right. They are going to get upset if you keep sending them emails that are just completely unnecessary.
When I want to purchase what I'm going to purchase, I'm going to come to your website or go to the store, and I'm going to get what I need. That is our customer base as well.
So what are some of the biggest challenges that you faced, and any failures that you've had along the way?
Some of the biggest challenges, I think one of the biggest challenges that we face on a daily basis, I know that concerns me, and whether it's a personal worry, whether it's an overinflated concern, I'm not sure. The need to be current, I think, is one of the biggest challenges certainly that I face, that I think about, that we think about as a corporation on a daily basis. How do we stay current? How do we ensure that we are appealing to the customer in the right way? And I think in today's day and age, with everything moving so quickly, there's always a new gadget, there's always a new widget, there's always a new something that you can suddenly get shiny object syndrome with and get caught up with. So I think one of the hardest things And the biggest challenges that we face is sorting through everything that we get put in front of us on a daily basis that we think could be the next great idea, because we're very innovative here. We do want to keep moving forward. And I think it's sorting out the wheat from the chaff and figuring out what is going to work. And then how do you test that? How do you move forward? I think one of my biggest, oh my gosh, what are we going to do moments absolutely has to be when search engine journal, Google, everyone else is like, right, mobile's going to go first. Mobile-geddon, as everybody called it. A phrase none of us will likely forget in the next couple of years, I'm sure.
Nope.
So that was a big one, because no one really knew what was going to happen. No one. There wasn't enough information. I mean, there was a plethora of information, but weeding through that information to try and find out was a tough call. We not only have the online presence of PremierTableLenders.com, we also have another website, burlaptablecloth.com, which is also a good value site for us as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I made the decision with mobile, not lightly, but I decided that with the burlap tablecloth, we would go with an RWD, or responsive web design, and we would change that design pre the mobile rollout. And the Premier Table Linens we kept as a static desktop site with a different platform for mobile. If I had one, and I don't like the term regrets because we learn from our mistakes.
Sure.
But if I could step back and change anything, that would be the thing that I would change. I would have put Premier Table Linens onto an RWD, a responsive web design, because I think that would have benefited us by now in our mobile conversions. If there'd been any mistakes made, or we didn't make the best decision, that's the one I want to go back and check.
Yeah, and it's remarkable how, maybe 3 years ago, all of a sudden, mobile passed desktop as more than 50% of of the traffic. And I mean, personally, I didn't see that coming 10 years ago. Shoot, 5 years ago. And it was just surprising how fast that happened. And now, if it's not mobile, you're missing out on some of that market.
Exactly. I think the next thing we're going to see as well, Jason, and I said this to a friend maybe about 5 years ago. I said I think the next thing that is going to really shake us up is going to be voice search.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's going to change things dramatically, and that I see that as being the next wave.
Yeah, and I think about my kids. Are they going to need to type? I mean, is it all going to be voice search?
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's a very good question. And I mean, if you look at, and I've done some researching on this, I mean, if you look at the structure of a voice search in comparison to somebody typing a search, the nuances between the two can make a huge difference to your search results. So I don't know, interesting times ahead with that one.
Yeah, absolutely. And you look at how we have evolved. Like, my handwriting is terrible because I haven't had to do any handwriting, right? And so it's all typing. And so for the next generation, will their typing be horrible? Well, who knows? Let's say a friend asked you about any advice that you had in starting an e-commerce company. What advice would you give that friend?
Oh, that's a really good question. A very good question. And funnily enough, a question I get asked quite a lot, ironically enough. I guess because of what I do.
Yeah.
My instant answer, my off-the-cuff answer to that is find someone's problem and solve it.
Mm-hmm.
It's that simple. And do something that you're passionate about, something that is going to excite you. And actually, you're going to feel it in your bones that it's something that you want to do. Because the actual setting up an e-commerce store, finding either manufacturing a product or finding a manufacturer that you can distribute for is as easy as rolling off a log. That is not the complicated part of this mix. And that's what people don't understand. The key thing is, what are you going to sell? Do people need it? And are they going to pay for it? And I see that you've got to solve a problem, which is just what we did here at Premier Table Linens. That's what many other businesses do. And I think that's the way you have to approach it these days, because at the end of the day, any Tom, Dick, or Harry can start an e-commerce store in under 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really that complicated. And if you don't have the knowledge to do it yourself, you can find out how to do it very quickly, or pay someone a couple of grand to get it done. the key thing is understand your market. What does your market need? And then fulfill that gap that you identify in the market, because otherwise you're just in a sea of everyone else who thinks they're going to make $1 million a year online just by putting up a website. Get ready to run that business. Putting a website up 10, 12 years ago when we were all doing it, it wasn't so hard to get it ranked and get it seen and get some backlinks and do everything else. Now you're in a sea of billions.
Yeah.
So have a strategy.
That's really great advice. We're not in 2000 anymore, where it was so easy back then to get ranked. You've missed that. And so you can't just start something. So you're right. You've got to find that problem and figure out what's the solution to that and offer that. That's really great advice.
Thank you, sir.
So for Premier Table Linens, where do you see the growth, and where do you see Premier Table Linens in 2022 and in 2027? What's next?
Next, we are one of the things that we introduced, and one of the primary reasons actually that Tony and I began negotiation for me to come on board full time here was our printed division. And we are currently in development of a new website, which is going to be dedicated purely to our printed products. I see that we are going to become a much larger player in the, let's say, promotional printed linen field, because we have some more products we're bringing out. Unfortunately, can't discuss those right now, but we've got some new exciting things happening in the printed. So we're looking to vehicle our printed department up to being a much stronger standalone department with a much greater and seamless integration with our factory. We're looking at doing some end-to-end communications, which will help with that. So I see the printed division growing exponentially.
Yeah.
And I would expect that to grow at least 1.5 times over the next 2 years. Our rental department, I think we'll just pretty much is going to stay as is, and we'll grow with sales. I see us going through a platform change. It's still on Magento, but by 2022, we better be on Magento too. That's just such a daunting change, but that's something that we have mock-ups on the plate for now. We're looking at those kind of things. So I see us losing in the next 4 to 5 years. I see us shedding some of our outdated technology, some of our outdated look. But I see us growing with the times. We're currently the 4th largest linen retailer on the internet within our given space, within our industry. So we're strong. We're staying above the fold, so to speak, with the other 3 big companies. And I see us doing nothing but continuing.
Nice. So when do you take over number 3, number 2, number 1?
I'd like to say that by 2022, we are going to be second or third. Because we've been on that steady path for quite some time. And if we just maintain, keep doing our new things, I think we're going to be good.
Ryan, I certainly appreciate the time today. And we look forward to seeing what happens in the future here.
Yeah, absolutely. Jason, I appreciate your time too. It's been fun chatting with you. And thank you very much for the opportunity. We continue to go onward and upward, sir.
All right. Thanks so much, Ryan.
Thanks, Jason.
So that was Ryan Cunningham, and we hope you enjoyed. I really liked his advice there about starting up a website. You can't just do it and expect results right away. You've got to figure out a problem and then a way to solve it. Until next time, I'm Jason Gillikin with Triangle Direct Media, and you've been listening to My Digital Story.